Hi, I'm Donna 𝒔𝒊𝒂𝒕. Welcome to Alberta at Noon from Ballater to Garden River on CBC Radio 1. For many temporary foreign workers in Alberta, tomorrow's a big day. If they're not preparing to become permanent residents, they'll have to leave the country. We'll talk about that and take your calls on what you think coming right up. Many temporary foreign workers are preparing to pack up and leave the country. Their work permits are expiring tomorrow under new federal rules. The changes could affect as many as 60,000 people. Here in Alberta, many businesses, from restaurants to stores to manufacturing companies, rely on these workers. Groups that advocate for migrant workers are gathering today to draw attention to the issue. 𝒖𝒎𝒎𝒊𝒈𝒓𝒂𝒕𝒊𝒐𝒏 is with Unifor and a member of the Temporary Foreign Worker Support Coalition in Edmonton. He says people are concerned and they're scared.
Many of them, have now realized that, it's over. And, people are struggling about, having to move their families. Many of them have been here for, since 2002, quite honestly, when they first opened the door, for the low skill. And, they have families here, relationships here, both with their employers and their coworkers and friends. And, now they're just asked to leave. So, of course, they're very scared, upset.
Evelyn Ackah is a business immigration lawyer in Calgary, and she's with me to take your calls. So, are you a temporary foreign worker who is faced with leaving Alberta? Tell us how you're doing. Maybe you have questions for Evelyn Ackah. Are you a store or restaurant owner trying to figure out how to cope when your temporary foreign workers are forced to leave? Give us a call right now at 1-866-468-4422. Send an email to alberta@noon@cbc.ca or a tweet to Alberta@noon. Good afternoon, Evelyn. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, what went through your mind when you heard what 𝒖𝒎𝒎𝒊𝒈𝒓𝒂𝒕 had to say? I mean, you work with many temporary foreign workers. What are they telling you?
It's a really sad day. We've been knowing that this date was coming for quite some time, but the fact that the government hasn't created opportunities for them to remain, Some people are guesstimating 16,000 people in Alberta alone will be affected at some point. And so we knew it was coming, but it's very surprising and disappointing that the federal government has not created at least an Alberta solution that would try to save some of these people.
What does tomorrow mean? Tell us about the new rules that go into effect.
Well, back in 2011, the federal government created this new temporary foreign worker regime where you could only spend 4 years in the low-skilled category and you could work in Canada, and you had to move yourself to permanent residence there's only one stream, really, the Alberta Provincial Nominee Program. So if you were successful and chosen, then you could remain as a permanent resident. Unfortunately, since the creation of the 2011 bar for 4 years, that they've just increased significantly the numbers of applicants, so much so that there's a huge backlog. So it's taking now upwards of over 2 years to be selected for the provincial nominee program. And if people didn't apply in time, their time has run out. And that's the unfortunate thing. They're stuck in this catch-22.
So in that situation, do many of these people just have to abandon that process and leave?
Unfortunately, they will, because if you don't get the nomination while you have a valid work permit, it's null and void. So it's really quite tragic to me that there hasn't been, something more. Right now, the government launched at the end of January a program to help bridge certain people that they selected for a 1-year bridging, because they recognize their delays and the volume and the lack of resources had led to this situation. It's nothing that the individual foreign workers has done.
Evelyn, who are the people who are affected by these changes then? What workers are we talking about?
They tend to be people in the food service industry, so lower skilled, working at franchise restaurants, for instance, working at hotels, some of them in the service industry. They're the ones that were affected, and they have very few options to move to permanent residence. So So because of that, the provincial nominee program was the only option. And because of the backlog, they've been negatively affected.
So what are they doing right now?
Many people are packing. Some of them may not have arrived in 2011, so they might not expire until later this year or even next year. But those who were in the regime in 2011 in the program, they are making plans to leave. Some people have applied for work permit extensions just so they can get the benefit of implied status, which means that if you apply before your work permit expires, you buy some time, up to 3 to 4 months, until your application gets reviewed by CIC, Citizenship and Immigration Canada, and then they toss it out because you don't qualify. They're just hoping to do that to give them some time to get that nomination certificate.
What is the effect on people who are in this situation?
It's been so stressful. I mean, as I mentioned to you earlier, the majority of my clients are more skilled, but we do have a percentage of lower skilled clients. It's very traumatic. The families are affected, their children, school. Some of them have Canadian-born children, husbands or spouses that are Canadian-born that they've since met. And so it leads to a lot of stress.
And what about the businesses where they work? What is the effect on those?
They are really quite in uproar and quite upset because they have utilized the program because they can't find foreign work or they can't find local workers. They would not go to the effort of hiring a temporary foreign worker, the cost, the time, if they could find people in Canada to fill those positions. So now many of them are considering we'll have to cut our hours or possibly lose our businesses as a result.
Let's hear from our listeners. I'm in conversation with Evelyn Ackah. She is a business immigration lawyer in Calgary, and we are asking you, what do you think about this deadline for temporary foreign workers, many of whom have to leave by the thousands possibly tomorrow? Give us a call and tell us, 1-866-468-4422. If you are somebody who employs temporary foreign workers, we'd love to hear from you. Or if you're someone yourself who is a temporary foreign worker, give us a call, 1-866-468-4422. And if you just would like to share your thoughts on this, we'd also like to hear from you. Our email address is alberta@noon@cbc.ca, and we're on Twitter @Alberta@noon. Evelyn, we'll go first to Red Deer, where Dennis has given us a call. Hello, Dennis. What are your thoughts on this? Hi.
Yeah, I wanted to say that there's a lot here that needs a provincial direction. I know it's all federal laws and such, but the brokers, probably the lawyers, they're owed a lot of money for these people coming in. They came here primarily after 2008 when we were in a recession. All those upgraders were going to be put into construction, and they came here. They worked in lodging. A lot of abuses.
Names here, Dennis, but just what is the bottom line from your perspective, Dennis?
Well, Albertans want these jobs now. They're willing to take them. They need to feed their families. These people are owe money, exorbitant amounts for rent, exorbitant amounts for brokerage, lawyer fees. They're in a no-win situation. I feel for them, but Albertans come first, and the Premier should make a statement about whether we're going to pay for all this when they all end up staying.
Dennis, thank you very much for expressing your view. I just want to pick apart a few things that Dennis has laid out there, Evelyn. Mm-hmm. He believes that when many of these temporary foreign workers are forced to return to their home countries, that Alberta and other and Canadians might be left holding a financial responsibility for their departure. What do you make of that?
I don't agree at all, unfortunately, with what Dennis said, because these people are paying their own ways back. They're not being deported. Many of them have received departure notices, which means they are voluntarily departing because they want to stay in good status so that the prospect remains open for 4 years later. If we still need them and they can find an employer, they can return in good standing. So they're not leaving anybody holding the bag. It's unfortunate that there is that perception because there are still thousands of jobs that Albertans won't do. And even in the recession in 2008, we still had a number of foreign workers that were filling positions that Canadians still would not accept. So I feel like there is a need for them, and we need to find a way to fairly allow them to move to permanent residence, I think sooner, rather than leaving it to this kind of change in policy where they're being negatively impacted.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the call, Dennis. We will go now to Lethbridge, where Peter is on the line. Hi, Peter. What are your thoughts on the deadline tomorrow?
Well, thank you for having me on, first of all.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, I work for a settlement agency down here in Lethbridge, and we are dealing with this issue on an ongoing basis. A good friend of mine is the temporary foreign worker advisor here at our office, and he sees an endless stream of employers and temporary foreign workers coming into his office that employers are desperate to try to find a way to keep their workers, and of course the temporary foreign workers are desperate to try to find a way to stay here. The reason why this is all going down, I mean, if you look back a couple of years to when there was that big political mix-up with the Chinese workers being brought in and people complaining in northern Alberta that Chinese workers were taking their jobs, the government had a very strong knee-jerk reaction to the situation, and it was a political move to do something about the temporary foreign worker program in order to solidify, to get a quick political win from their base, from the conservative base, which likes to see that the government is doing something to be tough on immigration. When the economic reality is that Canada needs immigration, and the government even knows this, you won't see them even touching the actual numbers of people that we bring in. We're seeing 5-10% increases every single year in the number of actual immigrants coming to Canada.
Peter, sorry,
yeah.
Carry on. Sorry, go ahead.
So what we're seeing here in Lethbridge is we're seeing people who own trucking companies, we're seeing industrial manufacturers, we're seeing restaurant employers coming in, and they just don't know what to do because they're losing very, very valuable people who are part of their workforce. These people aren't here to take people's jobs. They're here to try to find a way to get into Canada and to live here and to enjoy the quality of life that we enjoy.
Peter, now on that point then, perhaps I'm just throwing it out there to play devil's advocate. Should Canada not revisit its permanent residency program then to make the rules a little more receptive to people who want to come here? And what do you think about that? Because clearly if people are taking temporary foreign worker jobs with the idea that they can become permanent residents, maybe there's a problem somewhere else in the system.
Definitely. And, I mean, obviously the government's got their reasons for why they structure the immigration system the way they do. But what we're looking at is a point system that seems to be out of touch with the economic reality of the people that we need working here in Canada right now. It's heavily weighted towards the highly educated, people who already have money. They have to be able to show a certain amount of income and a certain amount of money in their bank account even to apply to get into Canada. And we're missing out on this entire class of workers who are blue-collar workers, skilled trades workers, people who are willing to jump into the industries that we are lacking employment in, and that, frankly, the young people in this generation just aren't willing to step up into and to take the jobs.
Peter, just before you go, in a sentence, what are you seeing come through your doors right now as a result of this deadline? We
are seeing men and women from all over the globe, you know, from Europe, from Russia, from Mexico, who have families, who have children, who have moved here, who left everything behind, hoping to get in through the immigration system by working hard. And they are crying, and they are desperate, and they don't know what's going to happen next.
Thank you for your call, Peter. Evelyn, what do you make of his point that this is one way of gaining entry to this country that we live in, that so many people want to live in, and this is the only door that's open?
It is. We are very fortunate to be here in Canada. I completely agree with everything Peter said. He obviously is very knowledgeable, having worked in the field he's working in. And the idea that the rules have been changed and the rug has been pulled out from under temporary foreign workers, and we're all just trying to adjust to the change, and it's left thousands of people in this situation is quite tragic. One thing that he said that I agree with is we should be looking, I think, for ways to try to keep some of these people here, because I know from a reputation perspective in 2008, 2009, employers let everybody go when the economy wasn't strong, and then it makes it harder to bring them back when you need them. So this is not just a short-term, I would say, mar and a negative stain for us as Canadians. It's going to affect us long-term. And as an aging population, we absolutely know we will always need foreign workers. Right now, the government allows 285,000 permanent residents into Canada every year. So we recognize the need. So why not find ways to keep those that are already established, successful, hardworking, remain here in Canada, and then become permanent residents in a faster, more efficient way? It just feels unfair because they're played by the rules and they're still losing.
Thank you, and thank you for the call, Peter. Sam is calling now from Edmonton. Hello, Sam. What are your thoughts as tomorrow's deadline comes down? Sam? We will come back to you, and we will go to Jason, who is on the line in Jasper at the moment. Hello, Jason. What do you think about this situation with temporary foreign workers who are faced with this deadline tomorrow?
Well, I think it's a crying shame that these people are going to be suffering basically over a political issue. It's due to perception here that they want to appease people who, in a slow economy, see these, as people coming in and stealing their jobs, when for the most part they're just trying to do what our ancestors did, which is be immigrants, help build a good life for themselves and their families, and build a stronger country along the way.
Your point is that you think that it's unfair, and I very much appreciate that you called. Thank you. And I want to ask you, Evelyn, about the situation that that people who are forced to leave will find themselves in once they go back home. Do they have any options? Are they ahead of anybody else because they've already been here? Will the process be any simpler for them?
Not at all. They go back to the back of the line. They have to wait for a minimum of 4 years before they can return. So unless they're in a situation where maybe they have a spouse in Canada that is able to sponsor them, that is a Canadian or permanent resident, they all have to go back and wait the 4 years. And one point that one of the previous callers made that I just wanted to get back to is the political impact. I mean, it definitely was a knee-jerk reaction, and I don't think that the federal government, thought through the full impact of dealing with a few bad apple employers. Absolutely. We all have to follow the rules, but a few bad apples has led to the creation of this new program that's affecting thousands of people across the country.
Thank you. And now we are going to Sam, who is on the line in Edmonton. Hello, Sam. Thank you for phoning. And what are your thoughts about the temporary foreign worker situation as the deadline looms?
Well, like I said earlier, I'm a franchise owner, and most of my employees that I have a few franchises are foreign workers. The reason that we employ a lot of foreign workers is the fact that it's very hard to find skilled labor here in Edmonton that's willing to, not say skilled, but willing to stay for a while. And now that all of a sudden, like I'll give you an example, in one of our shops, we have about 10 or 12 employees. About 8 of them are foreign workers and 6 of them are leaving tomorrow. And just to see the look on their faces, and they're just crying. They have kids. They've been here for a few years, and we've paid so much money, spent time, invested everything, and we've become a family. And just to have them pick up and leave, there's nothing harder than that.
Sam, what is involved for you as an employer who actually needed to have these temporary foreign workers employed in your business? How much effort and money does that require, and what are you going to lose when your workers go back?
Money is a separate thing. Money is the different issue. The main issue is just the relationship that we've built with these people over the few years. Like we see that they have, some of them have kids here. It's not, the money is a separate story. You know what I mean? It's just the fact that you have to think of these people as your own, like, friends and family. What would you do if you just, say, for example, your dad had to leave tomorrow the country? How would that affect you, right?
Sam, that's an excellent point. What are you going to do when your workers leave?
Oh, I honestly don't know. Like, we may have to cut our hours. We may have to bring in, some other people from Kijiji. We've been putting up ads. But like I said, it's very hard to get these people that are willing to stay for a while. And I do agree with the fact that the caller before, yes, some people do abuse this privilege where they bring people in and they just try to get residency. But most people do play by the rules. And I do believe that if you play by the rules, you've done everything right, that they shouldn't just kick you out just like that. That's not fair.
Sam, thank you very much for expressing your view. Evelyn, are you getting queries from franchise owners like Sam and other business operators who are very concerned about tomorrow?
It's really concerning. So we do work for franchisors across the country, and the reason that a lot of them have had to rely on the temporary foreign worker program was we had real issues, especially in Alberta, with retention. So even if you find somebody a Canadian that will work, they weren't, this is just a generality, but they wouldn't stay very long, or they always wanted more, or in terms of promotion, maybe sooner than they were ready. And so very few people want to stay at that front end, give you your coffee, give you your donuts type of position. So for a foreign worker, the opportunity opportunity to come is so significant that they're willing to put in the 2 or 3 years in order to get to that place for permanent residence.
Thank you very much. And Anne sent this email. She writes, these people should be offered the chance to immigrate as my parents were. She says anyone who is here now should be offered the chance to stay unless there is some compelling reason why they should not. It makes me ashamed to be Canadian, frankly. And Erin sent this email. Erin says, I feel for the people who are led to believe that this is a guaranteed track toward permanent residency, but I'm looking forward to the shift in the employment conditions. My competition, who are able to undercut me by using cheaper temporary foreign worker labor, will have great difficulty keeping up when they have to pay living wages to their Canadian employees. To your guest, I highly disagree that Canadians won't do the jobs that TFWs are filling. My business hires only Canadians in a service industry known for using the TFW program at a very high rate. Not sure why I can figure it out, but my competition cannot. So that's quite a scathing comment from Erin, who feels for the people who have to leave, but argues that if you pay decent wages to Canadians or landed immigrants, then you will not have a problem.
And I would say that employers who use the temporary foreign worker program sometimes even have to pay more than the wages they have to pay Canadians, because there's no set salary that the Canadians have to be paid. But the temporary foreign worker program has a prevailing wage, and sometimes it's even higher. So, then everybody's salary goes up. So I think that is a real negative misconception, that if you look at the job categories, they pay the exact same salaries that Canadians are being paid. I don't agree with him at all. I think it's a public perception that is wrong. And if you look at the facts, you can see that these employers are doing the right things, and they're bringing in people at the government set salary prevailing wage.
Thank you. And thank you for that comment, Erin. And we got an email from Annie Evelyn, who writes, the program should be changed to an immigration program and the TFW allowed to stay. However, employers should be prepared that once the TFWs have immigration status and are no longer dependent on low-wage skilled employment offered by fast food restaurants, they might seek employment that pay a living wage and allows them to make enough to have their families in Canada. We need to reflect on our need for cheap coffee and hamburgers and how that impacts the staff of these establishments. Is it something that we all need to reflect on as Albertans and as Canadians, Evelyn, that perhaps we're taking for granted our easy access to 24-hour service and fast food and so on?
I agree. I mean, I definitely think there's elements of what she just shared that I agree with. You do want everybody to be making a living wage and be able to be successful and integrate into the country. But at the same time, as a business owner myself, we all know what our profit margins are. We all know the ability of just to stay afloat. And so there are challenges on both sides, for both employers and employees to consider, and for us as consumers. Absolutely.
Evelyn, thank you so much for your insights today, and best wishes as you go through the next few days dealing with this.
Thank you so much for having me, Dawn. I appreciate it.
Thank you, and thanks to everybody who called and tweeted. Here's a quick one from Stefan, who tweeted, "What a shame, Canada, short-sighted and devastating for hardworking families in the hospitality industry." We'd love to hear from you on Talkback. Our apologies to those of you who didn't make it on. Our number is 1-800-461-9219. Evelyn Ackah is a business immigration lawyer in Calgary.